Hello and welcome to this video and to the channel if you are new to it, and hello again if you are a returning viewer. If you are already liking, subscribing and commenting, thank you very much. It really does help the channel kind of move forward. And if you are here for the first time, it would be awfully nice if you would consider doing that if you like what you see today. So today's video is inspired by my recent trip to Northern Ireland, where I went with my dad, who's done loads of trips there in the past on business, but has never really had the chance to kind of explore fully. So as we're now both retired, or in my case semi-retired, we had the opportunity to go. So we had a nice 3-day break, bit of record shopping, so there will be some stuff on my vinyl finds from Northern Ireland, and just took in the site. So at the end of the video, hopefully I'll put a little bit of footage from that on, and I'll attempt my first needle drop. Obviously there's no music on it, you know that didn't work, but keep your fingers crossed. So here we go then. So these are just some of my favourite acts from Ireland. So I've been to Southern Ireland, which is absolutely beautiful. First time in Northern Ireland, which is again a beautiful country, some really great touristy kind of things like the Giant's Causeway and stuff like that. So highly recommend it if you haven't been there. So yeah, so beautiful country, and they brought out some fabulous music. So no particular order, I'm just grabbing a pile of albums and a CD to show you some of my favourite acts of an Irish heritage. So let's start in, I think the 90s was this one. So the Cranberries, sadly Dolores is no longer with us, but a really good band. This is their first album, and the albums I've tried to pick are just ones that to me are the most Irish, you know, the essence of Ireland in there. So obviously this is really, I don't need to talk too much about this album, do I? But you've got obviously Linger was the big song on here, but Dreams is a massive track, isn't it? And it's a really good album. Always reminded me a little bit of another band called the Sundays. Wonderful album, sadly missed. This is I think the 25th anniversary. Oh yes, there you go. So this is on a bit of, for those who like to look at the records, a bit of clear vinyl there by the Cranberries. But yeah, great album, and definitely one of the best Irish bands of their era. Sadly, somebody else who's no longer with us is the late and absolutely brilliant Sinead O'Connor. Now, as you can see, this is a CD, so sorry vinyl community, because there is a bit of a gap in my vinyl collection around Sinead O'Connor. I've got all of the albums up to a point on CD, but when this album came out, I did have a vinyl copy, and I think it was around 1989-90, which would be when I had my first CD player. So I think what happened is when I bought the album on CD, I probably part-exed the original vinyl that I did have, which now goes for a little bit of money now. So the Sinead O'Connor stuff, sadly after she passed away, all shot up in value. Ironically, I was at a few record fairs before she died, and you could pick them up quite cheap, but all of a sudden now £20 records instead of £5 records. So yeah, but Sinead O'Connor, this is a great album. This is a debut. Mandinka obviously was a big single. The great track on here is Troy, which is a big orchestral song. So if you haven't heard that, check that out. But Sinead's first album, absolutely brilliant. I picked up on Sinead Connor because of her association with U2, because she sang on the Edge did a soundtrack, and she sang on one of the tracks. So that's where I first came across Sinead, but brilliant artist. Another person who sadly is no longer with us again is the late great Shane MacGowan of the Pogues fame. So this is their second album, I think, Rum, Sodomy and the Lash. You won't get a more Irish album this, but this took traditional Irish music and pumped it up. So obviously the big track here is The Dirty Old Town, isn't it? They do a great version of that traditional song, but it's a brilliant album all the way through. This one, band played Waltzing Matilda is a great song, Billy Bones, A Pair of Brown Eyes, a lovely song, The Wildcats of Kilkenny. It's just a great album. And again, I think they are bit by bit reissuing some of the Pogue stuff. So this one, produced by Elvis Costello, none less. And this was a very nice ready vinyl one. But yes, Rum, Sodomy and the Lash, the Pogues, can't go wrong with them. Another band from Ireland, Ash. So this is their third album. All their albums are good. They're a great singles band on this as well. So I kind of picked this one because some of the singles off this were brilliant. So Shining Light, Burn Baby Burn, Someday, Sometimes. It was just a great album, this, and real kind of return to form. I think the second album struggled a bit after the debut, but this one was a good one. That's the gatefold for those who want to know. And if we're looking at pretty vinyl, let's have a look at this one. I think this is a reissue, so it's, oh, here you go. This is rather nice. This is on a nice splattery kind of effect. So I think most of the Ash stuff has been reissued over the last few years because it was very hard to find on the old black wax. So it's all been put back out, which is good to see. And the next one I'm showing is a band that, after I kind of did a list, I thought, is there anyone I've missed? So I did a quick Google search of Irish bands, and this one surprised me because I didn't realise, but My Bloody Valentine are from Ireland. So Kevin Shields and all of them are, actually looking at the name, it kind of gives it around. The drummer is Caoimhe, I can't even say it, Caoimhe something, so yeah, it kind of gives it away, doesn't it? My Bloody Valentine, Creation Records, so this one is an original. I've got the reissue of Loveless, but I have to say I've always preferred this album, so here's a bit of vintage Creation Records vinyl there for you. Now I picked that one up a few years back, I think in the, was it Leominster? You know, there's a long established market with a record shop upstairs, and it was mainly rock stuff in there, so I don't think he really knew what this was, but this was a Creation Records original, so Cray LP040, so those are hard to find now. So I actually think I like this one better than Loveless. That probably causes all kinds of trouble. Right, who we got next coming up? So I'll show this one. Gary Moore, this is an album called Still Got the Blues. So this is his tribute to all of the blues artists that inspired him, like B.B. King, Albert King, Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac. So great album this. I do like the cover. So on the front he's in his bedroom with his Jimi Hendrix poster, and then on the back, many years later, he's living the life as a guitarist in his hotel room. So yeah, great album. My friend who he's a subscriber, hopefully he's still watching, but Simon was a big fan of this album. I remember when this came out, he played this one to death. So many years later, I picked up a vinyl copy for a £5 at a record fair. Yeah, great artist, Gary Moore, who, for those that don't know, was played with lots of bands, including another very, very big rock band who will be coming up later. So next one, this is a slightly more obscure band. I did show this on another video for recommending an artist that maybe is forgotten about, and this is a band called Inua, or Inua, I'm not quite sure how you say it, but this is their second album, and when I was in my Irish travels I found their first album, so that'll be coming up on my September finds. But this is a great album. Virgin Records, there was some association with U2. I think their first single was on their mother label, and Sinead O'Connor was, I think, an early member and co-wrote their first single, and Steve Wickham, who went on to play with the Waterboys, was also in an early incarnation. But by the time this album came out, those two are long gone. They're on Virgin Records. Didn't do particularly well, so sadly after the Joshua Tree, I think a lot of Irish bands got snapped up, and some fell through the cracks, and this is one of them. But this is a really good album for those who don't know it. So if you see this one in the wild at fairly cheap, highly recommended. Now I'm going to show you, got some big hitters coming up next. So one of my absolute favourites is Clannad. So this is the Magical Ring. Now, I'll always look for Clannad purely for the theme from Harry's Game. So in the 80s, there was a TV show called Harry's Game. They did the theme music, and it was all about a British undercover soldier who infiltrated the IRA and eventually got rumbled, and obviously didn't have a happy ending. But the theme music is the lasting legacy of that, and U2 also used it on their Under a Blood Red Sky video when they were playing Red Rocks and it was raining and there was mist and the gig was going to be called off. So that was like the intro music to that video. So always love that particular track. But whenever I see Clannad albums out and about, I always get them because they're always quality. They went into a more rocky kind of sound as the years went by, but their early stuff is just beautiful. And of course there was a young Inua in their midst at some point, but great band. And again, if you see these records, pick them up because they sound wonderful and the music's beautiful. So here we got left 4 to go. So can you guess who that might be? So this one I've just picked up, so this is again a little sneak preview of my September vinyl finds, but the Immortal Undertones. So I've got all the records on CD. Up until 2 weeks ago I'd got nothing on vinyl, and I finally managed to find one, and I bought this in Derry, in a brilliant record shop, but I'll tell you more about that in another video. This is a singles album, and they were one of the best punk singles bands, weren't they? So obviously the Immortal, Teenage Kicks, Jimmy Jimmy, You Got My Number, Why Don't You Use It, great song, My Perfect Cousin, Wednesday Week, crikey, Here Comes the Summer, It's Gonna Happen, just literally banger after banger after banger. So I have now got more than one Undertones album, so more to come on my next video, or whenever I do the September one. There is quite a few actually. So yeah, great band, Fergal Sharkey on vocals, and they never took themselves too seriously, did they? But one of the all-time greats. Right then, so if I was doing a top 3, for many, many years, the next one would have been number 1. But I'm afraid in recent years, their stock has tumbled a little bit, and I'm a little bit frustrated with their output over the last 15-20 years. But for a time, this band were my all-time favourites. Seen them live several times, and they are a fabulous live band, or they certainly were. And this is my original copy bought in 1984 from Virgin Records in Birmingham. So, and I think this has got the best cover they ever did. So this is U2, obviously, with the Unforgettable Fire. And this is definitely their most Irish-sounding record. It was recorded at Slane Castle there. And the opening track, Sort of Homecoming, is a beautiful song. Obviously got the Unforgettable Fire. The first U2 record I bought was a single of that, and that from there I started investigating their catalogue. Saw them on the Joshua Tree tour, and that's still my absolute all-time favourite gig. I was 16, and the place, the Birmingham NEC, just was bouncing. I don't think I've ever caught an atmosphere like that. Very rarely since. So great band. This album could have been, for me, an absolute classic if they'd have just switched out a couple of tracks for some of the B-sides that were around at this time. The track Elvis Presley in America really lets this album down, because it's the last but one track, and it's not very good. It's a Brian Eno improvisation piece, and shouldn't have been on the album. That should have been relegated to B-side status, and they got some really good outtakes they could have put in its place. But Bono and the gang, not very popular, is the old Bono. I've always wondered how somebody who, from my eyes, always tries to do some good with his influence and his money, you know, with the AIDS stuff and the Africa stuff. He's done a lot to try and eradicate world poverty and the gap, but he's hated, isn't he? That shows you what happens when you mess with people's iPods. But there you go. So there you go. U2 would have been higher, but they haven't made a good record in a long, long time, and starting to worry me a little bit. I think it's almost time, should they knock it on the head? Anyhow, oh, cat interruption. So there she goes. That's actually not my cat. That's a neighbouring cat that just wanders in from time to time. So yeah, U2 there. Oh, the big 2. So of all the Irish bands that I've listened to for the longest, these guys would be number 1. So because I've been listening to these since the 80s. So Thin Lizzy and the Immortal Jailbreak, with that wonderful TV screen cover. You can't really beat this album, can you? I chose this one. I could have chosen a number of Thin Lizzy albums, but it's got the song Emerald on it, which is just an absolute class piece of music. So yeah, Phil Lynott sadly missed. That's if you've ever read any books about the demise of Phil Lynott, it was a really sad ending to a wonderful talent. So rest in peace, Phil. But Phil will ever be immortal, really, because of some of the music he made, and he was a fabulous writer. More than just a rock band, Thin Lizzy. And the Gary Moore connection, at some point in their history, Gary Moore was in the band. So before the cat destroys anything, I've just noticed, you know, up on the window, the final artist is going to be Van Morrison, with could have picked 10 different Van Morrison albums, but I went for this one, St. Dominic's Preview, absolute classic. It's got some of the poppier stuff in, things like Jackie Wilsonstead, but it's also got a couple of really long, kind of rambly songs in Almost Independence Day and Listen to the Lion. So Van the Man, I'll probably do a separate video on my Van Morrison albums. I've got all the CDs, most of the vinyl, and he is a phenomenal artist. So if you haven't got any Van the Man in your life, please go out and do it. You could really start with any of his kind of 60s and 70s output, but this is a great album. So before this cat destroys anything, I will leave it there, and hopefully there'll be some pictures and music to follow.